Rolling, starting broadcast. All right. Hello on Periscope. And all right, we're now live on YouTube. Hello, I'm Keith F. Shovlin, publisher and chief creative of aois21 Publishing. It is September 21st, so it's time for the Ask aois21 on the 21st. I'm here to answer any questions you might have on the book publishing process, writing, editing, marketing, promotions, cover design. Any questions you have, you can send to me. I'll see them on the screen on Periscope, see them on the screen on YouTube. You can tweet to us at aois21 or use the hashtag AskAOIS21, AOIS21. We also have a Facebook event page where you can send your questions in. So feel free to send them in. I'm here to answer them. We seem to have, we usually get a pretty decent group coming in here. They don't always start off. It always starts off a little slow. And these videos are posted on YouTube afterwards. So everything stays up there. And if you want to catch this later on, it will be on the aois21 YouTube channel, posted under Ask aois21 on the 21st, September 2016. So, it is September 2016. How did we get towards the end of September already? Time is passing rather quickly. I feel like I was just down here recording the August one. Now, in August, I was talking about how personal experiences can influence your writing. It was at that point, the 14th anniversary of my moving down to the Washington, D.C. area. So, it's an interesting time. So, of course, you may notice the surroundings look a little bit different if you watched the previous ones. We now have the office space is still coming together, but at least we have a desk workspace now. Got some stuff up. Now, just a quick talk before I really get into it. Something very important, near and dear to me, coming up on October 8th is the Walk to End Alzheimer's on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. As you see, we got the official bag there that they sent us for our team. The aois21 team, we have currently it's listed as 5 team members, but I think only 3 of them are actually walking. But we're raising money to help fight Alzheimer's disease, and then we'll be walking as a team on Saturday, November 8th on the National Mall. And I believe we start right near the Washington Monument, and we'll either walk up to the Capitol and back or down around the Lincoln Memorial and back. I'm not sure which route we're going on this year. But I've done it in years past, usually on my own or with my family. This time I decided that I wanted to put together a team for aois21. It's part of a weekend of events that we have going on. It starts really everything starts the previous Saturday, October 1st, when we release the next edition of the aois21 Annual, which if you are a follower of aois21, you saw we released the cover design today, featuring a beautiful picture by actually one of our staff members who is also a contributor, Adam Wallach. And then, so October 1st, that will come out. The following Tuesday, October 4th, we will be having a live reading event at Walls of Books in Washington, D.C., October 4th at 7 p.m., where contributors to the annual will be coming out and reading their contributions to the aois21 Annual. And we'll also be having having a fundraiser for the memory walk is what they used to call it, but the Walk to End Alzheimer's. So if you come on out, we'll have a donation tin, make a small donation, help us out as we're trying to raise $2,000. Obviously the Walk to End Alzheimer's is trying to raise far more than that. So we got a ways to go. So help us out, either our individual goals or our company goal. So we'll be raising money for that. And then that Friday night, Michael Judkins, one of our creatives who lives up in Allentown, Pennsylvania, will be returning to the DC area to Friday night appear at the First Friday in Leesburg at Books and Other Found Things. And then he'll be walking with us at the Walk to End Alzheimer's Saturday morning. And then 2 o'clock, we return to Walls of Books for Judkins to have a live reading at Walls of Books, which I believe will also have a musical element to it as well. It's something he experimented with when he was up back in August, and it's something that he's really passionate about and should have more to show on that when he comes up the second week of October. So there's a lot going on in the DC area this weekend. We actually have 2 book festivals going on this weekend. We've got the National Book Festival in DC, hosted by the Library of Congress. It's taking place at the Washington Convention Center, the beautiful Walter E. Washington Convention Center, which is just off Mount Vernon Square in Washington, D.C. I'll be there during the day, just visiting, but also I'll be doing some live recording for the next edition of the Publish Me podcast. So if you see me coming up, then you might get a chance to have your voice heard on the next edition of Publish Me. But so that's a great event where they have hundreds of fantastic authors out to do readings and talks, and then all kinds of different exhibits on book conservation, book preservation, book publishing, book care. So if you're around the DC area on Saturday and looking for something to do, that's the place to stop in. Also coming up, starting on Sunday, is the Fall for the Book Festival in Northern Virginia. It's based mainly off of George Mason University campus in Fairfax, Virginia. But that's several days of events, author events, readings, book talks. Unfortunately, they don't have a book expo this year. Last year, aois21 was there with a couple other publishers and some on-campus groups. We were kind of shoved in a corner for the book fair because of the poor weather conditions. And this year, they decided to cut back a day from the event, and in doing so, they eliminated the book expo. So that's something that ran last year from Sunday to Saturday. This year, it's only Sunday to Friday. But there are book events throughout the Northern Virginia area. In fact, I think there are even a couple in Washington, D.C. as part of that festival. So between this weekend and next weekend, there's a lot to do for book lovers in the D.C. area. And if you're not in the D.C. area, well, I'm sorry, you're missing out on that. Although there's other things. There's the Baltimore Book Festival going on soon. And I know the Beijing International Book Fair just ended. And there's going to be a lot of book events coming up throughout the fall. So keep on the lookout. A lot of good chances to meet authors, to walk around and meet exhibitors from different publishing companies and writer groups, and even just authors and illustrators and things like that. So a lot of good opportunities to get out there and find out about more books that will help enliven the spirit and get you reading, because that's the most important thing. We write so that people will read, and we don't write a book just to help improve literacy in the country, although people who do write books that help teach people to read, yes, that's their goal. But for the most part, we write to tell our stories, and then the goal is, once you're writing, you're not done, because then you got to make your story accessible. And already putting it in a book makes it more accessible, because you're no longer holding it into yourself. And you could tell the story in a podcast, in audio form. You can release it in a series of stories on a blog or online. But once you put it in a book, then it can be even more accessible, because when you go on to online book markets, you can see those books up front and center, and which is something you might not see if you post it on a blog or as a podcast or tweet it. Yeah, some people are actually tweeting short stories now. What an incredible age we live in. Tweeting 140 characters at a time. Of course, they said that pretty soon that there will be an increase in the character limit, but it's not going to be dramatic, because the main thing is links will no longer count towards 140 characters. And I think they said hashtags? No, hashtags still count, but mentions no longer count, I think. So it'll be interesting to see how Twitter deals with that change. So speaking of Twitter, let's see any questions coming in on the tweets. That's at aois21, aois21. Tweet to us with the hashtag AskAois21, and any questions you might have, I'll do my best to answer. Yeah, this is a back and forth, so you don't have to just sit there watching me. You can feel free to chime in, tell me your story, ask your question, and we'll figure out if I can help you out at all. So let's see. All right. Oh, okay. Well, I always try to start out the monthly talk by having a topic to discuss. I said at the top that last month I talked about personal experiences influencing story writing. And then I've talked about book festivals a lot, because usually a lot of these webcasts coincide with some of the bigger book festivals. In fact, one of the first ones we did back in March 2015, I had just gotten back from the Virginia Festival of the Book in Charlottesville that day. So that night, like, I got back and sat down at a dining room table to do the webcast. So this is obviously a Wednesday night. Obviously, I'm not in the middle of the night. Now, there have been some very important things in the literary world happening lately. Last week, in fact, we got the new Librarian of Congress was sworn in, which is a fantastic moment. Dr. Carla Hayden, who is not only the first woman to be the Librarian of Congress, but she's also the first African American. So she's starting her, for the first time, a librarian is appointed to a set term limit. They used to be a lifetime appointment, but the Congress decided when Dr. James Billington retired that it was time to reassess whether that lifetime term was really worthwhile. And in the case of Dr. Billington, his final years in office were kind of marred by poor adaptation with the changing demands of IT. So, oh, my throat's going out on me. Maybe I should have brought a bottle of water or something in here with me. Oh, well. But so with a week after he retired, Congress passed a change to the Librarian of Congress, limiting the next person to a 10-year term with the possibility of reappointment. So Dr. Carla Hayden is the first librarian to be limited to that 10-year term. And she officially started last Wednesday in a beautiful ceremony. She was sworn in by Chief Justice John Roberts. The Bible she used was President Abraham Lincoln's Bible, which he was sworn into office on. And it was held by her 82-year-old mother. And she was introduced by the Speaker of the House, by Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri. Yeah. And she was then finally introduced by Senator Barbara Mikulski of Maryland. And then she gave a short address afterwards. I was there. I was fortunate to be my full-time job. I work at the Library of Congress, and I was fortunate to be one of the library staff that was selected to attend. Oh, it's too bad. Unfortunately, I was surprised how little the news covered it. We haven't had a new librarian in 28 years. And not only do we get a new librarian, but it's the first African-American librarian, the first female librarian. And I went on to CNN and CNN's website. I never watched CNN, and yeah, nothing about it. I know. Well, gotta remember, you've got a giant orange head that keeps on stealing all the attention on the news right now. So that tends to be a problem. Yes, unfortunately. But yeah, I actually got to meet Dr. Hayden that day. They had library staff were able to line up and personally meet her, and it was quite a moment. I had met Dr. Billington before, but this was a bit more special meeting Dr. Hayden. She was, previous to being the Librarian of Congress, she was the head of the Enoch Pratt Free Library in Baltimore, and she served in that role in distinction for 13 years. And during that time, most notably, actually, a story from during the riots after the Freddie Gray incident in dealing with Baltimore police, when the riots that happened in Baltimore, she boldly kept the libraries in Baltimore open during the riots, including the Pennsylvania Avenue location in Baltimore, which was right across the street from the CVS that was burned to the ground. So she kept it open. People were coming in seeking refuge in the location. She was personally there working the library with the regular staff. She made sure people got there safely. And it ended up becoming a center point for congressmen and senators that were coming into the city and city leaders to meet with residents. So she kept the libraries open. She kept people safe. And she provided a community place to come and be in. And she was a top candidate to be the Librarian of Congress even before that happened. But that extra story, I mean, everyone who introduced her brought that up during the ceremony last week, and it's become a defining moment for her. My favorite book is 1984 by George Orwell. It's an excellently written book. It's very vividly painted. Oh yes, you will be remembered. Uh, it's beautifully written, beautiful visuals described in it, but also the circumstances in which I read it. I read it senior year of high school, and afterwards, it just really. I read it. We were allowed to read any book we wanted for a class assignment for lit class, and afterwards, it just really reinvigorated my love of reading. So I followed it up with first. Right after that, I found a book in one of the bookstores that they have at Prime Outlets called the book was called Teaching Democracy by Dr. Alfred Minahan, professor at Brown University, and I read that book and really lapped it up. And then it was all about a class he taught on democracy at Brown University, and at the back he had a reading list, and after that, I just took that reading list and just started crossing off every book I can on it. And that was things like Cultural Literacy by E.D. Hirsch, the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx, the Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler. And obviously those aren't examples of democracy, but it's a very helpful thing to understand the importance of democracy when you contrast it. Yeah, absolutely. When you contrast it with the Communist Manifesto and Mein Kampf, which are on two opposite sides of the political spectrum from each other. Then, of course, other books along that. I like some Russian lit. I was bored to tears by A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. I had to read it for a modern novel class I took when I was in college, and I just couldn't get through it. It was tough. I think other Russian lit, I haven't really gotten into too much Dostoevsky. At least some Russian writers, Dostoevsky and Tolstoy. And those are the main ones that come to mind. I don't personally know any Russian writers. I know somebody who is of Russian descent. Okay. Yeah. Which is your favorite book by Dostoevsky? Crime and Punishment. Yeah. I think, of course. Yeah, that is his most well known. I think I know I didn't have to read it in full. I think I had to skim it for a Russian history class I took in college, but yeah, it's just interesting. Yes. Yeah, I'm more now. Currently, I'm actually on a dystopian kick right now. I'm currently most of my reading I do through audiobooks because I spend so much time reading and work that to actually sit down and read a book has been difficult. So I just finished a couple weeks ago. I finished World War Z by Max Brooks, and I'm currently listening to A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. And I think next on my list is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. So, yeah, definitely a dystopian kick. And I'm sure if a psychologist looked at my Goodreads shelf, yeah, The Road. Yeah, the movie is based off the book. And from what I understand, it's a pretty good rendition. So, yeah, it's next on my list after I finish Clockwork Orange, which I should be wrapping up probably Friday or Saturday. And I started with World War Z because I was listening to an interview that Max Brooks gave on the Nerdist podcast, and he talked about all the talent he got in to do the audiobook for World War Z. And you have such great voices. You have Alan Alda, Henry Rollins, Mark Hamill. Those are the big three that come to mind. I mean, all telling the different characters in the book, because the book is a series of interviews. So he's got each of these people represented by different voice actors, and it is just exceptionally done. So I was attracted to listen to that, and then I finally started watching the 12 Monkeys television show, the adaptation that's on Sci-Fi, adapted from the movie by Terry Gilliam. And so I'm kind of really on a dystopian kick right now, which is both a good and a bad thing. I mean, sometimes when you really get sucked into that kind of stuff, you have to get up and look around once in a while. I remember I took a class in college called American Culture in the Nuclear Age. I used to first season, but I don't have HBO anymore. I definitely found it interesting. I mean, they've obviously diverged far from the books now, but I did watch the first season. And as far as fantasy reading, I'm currently actually on book 5 of the Chronicles of Narnia. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, everyone I know that have read the books highly recommend them, especially saying that they're superior to the show. And the show's pretty damn good. So if the show's pretty damn good and the books are superior, then you got something ready to check out there. But I've been reading to my kids. I've been reading the Chronicles of Narnia. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing too. So I'm reading Chronicles of Narnia. We're currently on The Horse and His Boy. So book 5 chronologically as they were released, but it's actually, I think, the third book in the series if you actually go by the numbering. But I'm going to be reading through the entire series with my kids, so that's our nighttime reading with them. So I'm currently juggling like 3 or 4 things that I'm reading through, because I've been off and on reading Stand on Zanzibar by John Brunner as an ebook on my phone, the audiobook currently of A Clockwork Orange, reading Horse and His Boy to my kids, and then there was research reading that I've been doing on an eventual book on the War of 1812. So I'm reading, it's going to be historical fiction, so I'm reading a lot of historical accounts on the war to get me the proper background to be able to write with some authority. A good fantasy epic you would suggest? Well, I mean, there's the Kings. There's obviously there's the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. There's Lord of the Rings by by J.R.R. Tolkien. I almost said J.K. Rowling. No, she wrote something else. Yeah, Lord of the Rings is excellent. I think I read at least The Hobbit when I was in school, so it's been a long time since I picked that up. And obviously the Hobbit movies go in far more detail than the book does. Then there's some other ones. I have a friend that's a big fan of the what's the name of the series? Oh, I've heard good things about the Shannara Chronicles. I know it's a TV series now as well. Right along there with Game of Thrones. Of course, Harry Potter is fantasy. And of course, our Publish Me podcast is all about working with an author who is writing his own fantasy epic, The Will of the Magi, which will be coming out hopefully sometime next year. He's just got to finish writing the book. It's close to 200,000 words now, but he's on the final chapter, so it should be finishing up sometime soon. What was the one? The Will of the Magi, yes. Written by Paul Dickinson Russell. It should be out next year. Then, what's the name of that series? Hanson, I can't. Oh, good. Thank you. It's the series that I haven't. Oh, Robert Jordan. What's the name of the Robert Jordan's book series? The Wheel of Time. Oh, I thought it was Wheel of Time, but that's also a name of an episode of Doctor Who, so I wanted to make sure I wasn't confusing the two. So yeah, Wheel of Time series. That's 14 books and a prequel novel by Robert Jordan, who passed away in 2007, and I believe they're going to be continuing. Oh, The Will of the Magi is by Paul Dickinson Russell. So yeah, this series of the Wheel of Time series is actually recommended by Paul, It's one of his favorite series, and pass that along. Otherwise, fantasy series. There's not too many I've read because I usually prefer. I read a lot of historical fiction. I read a lot of contemporary stuff. Nothing really too much in series other than currently with Chronicles of Narnia. Oh, yeah, historical fiction's fantastic. I mean, every once in a while you get a dud, but there's some great stuff that just trying to bring a new perspective to historical events and letting you get into it a bit more through the eyes of characters that may be real, maybe not. And you had the Killer Angels about the Battle of Gettysburg. That was actually what was the basis for the movie. Historical fiction. Well, let's start with if you're interested at all in the American Civil War, the Battle of Gettysburg, The Killer Angels by Michael Shara is an excellent book. They used that as the basis for the movie that they made, starring Jeff Daniels and Martin Sheen. His son, Jeff Shara, then tried to pick up the mantle and keep going with it, and he actually wrote the books that became the basis for Gods and Generals. That he wrote Gods and Generals and The Last Full Measure, which aren't as good as The Killer Angels, but still pretty good. What else do I think about historical fiction? Well, obviously David McCullough. Reading, I know it's more biography, but 1776 is so much more than a biography because it's not one person; it's a whole year. So he really does an excellent job with that. And David McCullough's done some excellent historical writing, not obviously historical fiction. And now I'm trying to think of good historical fiction. I keep coming up with actual history books, like stuff like Doris Kearns Goodwin. And, I like. Just trying to think. Unfortunately, yeah, a lot of my reading lately has been confined to reading the news, and then I'm slowly catching up with audiobooks and everything. So. Like I got through, there's a good fantasy series, The Magician series by Lev Grossman. It's been turned into a TV show on the Sci-Fi Channel. It's a 3-book series. My wife and I listened to it on audiobook while on vacation, a full weekend of just going through that series, and it was fantastic. The Magicians, yeah. Yeah, it's The Magicians, The Magician King, and The Magician's Land is the 3 books in the series by Lev Grossman. I highly recommend those. In fact, they were recommended to me by Aisha Tyler, the host of the Girl on Guy podcast. She also is the host on Whose Line Is It Anyway? And she's on The Talk. Yeah, The Talk. It's always difficult remembering which one there's The Talk, The Chew, The View. Yeah. And she's also on Criminal Minds and various movies and things. So she recommended The Magician, so I checked it out, and I highly enjoyed it. And it's now a TV series on Sci-Fi. All right. Well, it is 9 o'clock already. That happened quick. Well, if you have any more questions or anything else you want to talk about, and since I've had your attention all this time, I'll stay on as long as you want to talk. Let's see. I'm just checking. Okay. No, if you have anything else you want to ask, feel free. I mean, that's what I'm here for. I mean, a lot of times these things turn into a conversation about the books I read and like, so. And of course, I'm a writer myself, but I do write contemporary fiction. So nothing fantastical. And yeah, nothing really planned. I'm on this channel. We're on the 21st of every month at 8:30 for this webcast, and then we're on every once in a while for events. Like we'll be on Tuesday, October 4th, when we'll be broadcasting the live readings from our latest edition of our literary magazine, the aois21 Annual, and hopefully we'll be on again on that Saturday, the 8th, with a quick broadcast from the National Walk to End Alzheimer's, and then from the reading with Michael B. Judkins at Walls of Books in Washington, D.C. And then every once in a while we might have events. I know we have another book fair coming up in I think it's October 22nd in Frostburg, Maryland. And then we have the DC Author Fest coming up in early November. And we'll have other events around. We should have an event for Dr. Deepan Chatterjee in October at Walls of Books, and in November an event for Bianca Balmazano at Walls of Books. We really enjoy working with Pablo Sierra at Walls of Books, and so we'll be visiting there a lot. We were hoping to have an event there this month, but we couldn't make it work out with scheduling. So, okay, so my commenting viewer on Periscope is going away. Wait, oh, you're still there? Okay. For some reason, it lists as 0 people watching, yet you're still there. So, Periscope. Surprised, and no one accosted me this time. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching. Thanks for contributing. For those that are watching on YouTube, thank you. This video will be saved on the aois21 YouTube channel. And as always, you can send any questions throughout the month to the aois21 Twitter account at aois21 with the hashtag AskAois21. We'll be back on October 4th at the aois21 annual launch party, and then we'll have events that weekend. And then we'll definitely be back on October 21st, 8:30 p.m. right here. Same bat time, same bat channel. See you then. All right.